All right, there we go. I'm going to hit the record. We've got some people coming and joining us as we're talking. We're going to try to moderate. I'm going to try to moderate as best I can, but welcome to tonight. We've got an interesting conversation. As you all know, my name is Gina Yarrish, and we come live every Tuesday night with either an activity in the arena in order to help heighten your awareness as to, what you need to see so that it can help improve your sales, your relationship, your health, and the results in life itself. Well, tonight we have a really awesome guy that I know personally, and I've spent the last 11 months now working with since February. Well, actually 12 months because we started in January, right, with Ted. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I'd like to welcome Aaron Thompson, correct?
Lambert.
Say that again?
Lambert.
Lambert. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
That's
Aaron
okay.
Lambert. Aaron owns, he's the founder of Whole Health and Wellness Center out of Binghamton, New York. And he has worked with people physically, in his office as well as virtually and long distance. It's a little bit more challenging, but he does both. But tonight we're here to talk to you about, how stress has an impact on your health. And a lot of people are not really consciously aware of the severe impact that it actually causes. So Aaron, let's talk. We're just going to have a general conversation, you and I, and then at some point towards the end, so that we don't have too much interruption. For those, we're going to check and see online if we're getting any questions, or if anyone wants to come on live and ask us some questions, then we'll take questions at that point. So it's very unique what it is that you do, but I'd like to save that to the end.
Okay.
Because it's not about medicine. First, I want to talk about, most people aren't aware, like metaphysically, right? How stress has a specific impact on the organs and the body. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, that's a really good question because when I see clients, their number one complaint is chronic fatigue and then stress. Mm-hmm. So just about everyone comes through and they talk about stress. And so stress can be both physical and it can also be mental, and they can feed into each other. If one's getting worse, if mental stress is getting worse, physical stress will get worse, and physical stress gets worse, and mental stress will get worse. Mm-hmm. But what happens more often with mental stress is that it gets somewhat ignored, or it's not taken into account as seriously as physical stress in terms of what it can do to the body. Mm-hmm. And mental stress can be just as bad to the body as having long-term diabetes or autoimmune disease that's going on for years and years. And what I'm talking about is chronic stress, not just a small stressor, like let's say you had to go to a big event and you were stressed about that and then it happened and it was done. But what I'm talking about is the stress that's brought on by family, by work, by activities, by things that you constantly worry about that are part of your own mental state that bothers you, and things that could have even happened starting in childhood that you're carrying with you for years and years. And what that does is it tends to weaken the body physically. So mental stress will weaken the body physically by weakening, for example, the endocrine system, which is your thyroid, your adrenal glands, your hypothalamus, and your pituitary. And women, from my perspective, when I see clients, tend to be more susceptible to the endocrine system being stressed out, which again, the thyroid and adrenal glands, a little bit more than the men. And what's important about the endocrine system is that is essentially your hormone control center. So if mental stress is dragging down your endocrine system, then it's going to be very hard to be hormonally imbalanced. And then once you're hormonally imbalanced, all sorts of health issues can arise, from chronic fatigue to chronic brain fog. Mental stress can take you into physical pain, both in your joints and your muscles, and also your digestive system. So there's a lot wrapped in with mental stress that people tend to not acknowledge because unlike physical stress, mental stress, sometimes men and women will see it as a sign of weakness if they if they admit that they're mentally being worn down. And so it gets ignored more often than physical stress. But unfortunately, they're the same.
Well, it's interesting because I think in Western culture, Aaron, it's almost like the head is detached from the body. Like whenever there's something going on, people will immediately go and have their body looked at, but we never go and have our head looked at, or think that there's anything that's going on in our head that could be causing a problem in our body. And so it's
Yeah.
like two separate.
Which is typical of how things are approached, unfortunately, is that the brain is not organic. It's something completely different than the heart and the lungs and the liver. But the brain is affected just like the heart is from chronic stress.
Mhm.
And so and also in terms of what you eat will affect the brain just like it will affect the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and the rest of the body. So you can't separate the two. I tell clients that the brain is as demanding of organic and real foods as the rest of the body. So whatever you're eating is going to reflect in how you feel, whether it's stress, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, inability to remember things, brain fog, those kinds of things, and getting into the worst things that are more serious like dementia and Alzheimer's. That you can't detach those brain functions from the rest of the body. It's impossible, but it does happen way too often.
Yeah. But in traditional medicine, I mean, like all of a sudden there's something going on inside of our body. And I'll give you an example. I remember myself when I was in my probably mid 20s, I would, get the shakes all of a sudden. And, I'd go to the doctor. And because I had this physical component
Mm-hmm.
of getting the shakes, I'm thinking like, oh, there's diabetes, blood sugar, whatever it may be. And so you go in and you go to get tested and nothing shows up.
Yep. That's that's actually a good point that rarely gets mentioned is that a common theme among clients that you don't hear talked about, and you're one of the first people that has mentioned it other than myself and like other people who do what I do, is that although subconsciously clients know the same thing, is they go and they feel bad mentally and physically, but the blood work says you're fine.
Mm-hmm.
And so the doctor, most doctors, not all, there are some who know how to dig deeper, will look at you and say, what are you complaining about? You're fine. Maybe here's a little antidepressant medication or anti-anxiety medication to make you feel better. But what happens frequently, and I'll bring this little slide up, is that, let me see if I can find it real quick.
Sure.
This one here is that a lot of times when you're mentally stressed out, you're in the where you see the yellow, which is an area of dysfunction. You don't feel good. You may have, like you said, you have the shakes. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So I mean, like it was, like you kind of get like this nervousness.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're in that area where the dam hasn't completely broken. So the body still is maintaining a more or less homeostasis, but it's starting to show cracks, but not enough to where the blood chemistry is going to show it.
Mm-hmm.
And even when you do specific tests for hormones like cortisol or thyroid, TSH for the thyroid or T4, T3, even those may not show anything. And so nothing is done. And things just kind of wait on a timer until eventually the dam breaks. You go to the doctor and they say, aha, you have an issue, which it could have taken 5 years for that point. But if someone had identified that as a real concern 5 years ago, you could have handled it. So that's a common thing too, is that a lot of times clients will come in and say, I feel very nervous inside. I have butterflies. My hands are shaking. I just feel, everything is, since something happened, I've been really out of sorts. And not realizing it, for example, and frequently in that case, is the adrenal glands have ceased to be as supportive as they should. And so outward signs of that would be nervousness, anxiety, shakiness, feeling faint during the day or when you stand up, a rapid heartbeat. A lot of times when someone's under chronic stress, their heart rate will take off and go irregular or very fast, and they go to the doctor, and the doctor says tests are fine, but they're checking the heart. They forget that the adrenal gland, which is your main stress supporter, has essentially kind of checked out or doesn't have the strength to do its job. And so the heart's left without the support.
Mm-hmm.
And when the heart's left out without the support from the adrenal glands, it doesn't function well. And that's why it starts making up, you start feeling maybe pain in the chest, or it starts to shoot up quickly, or it goes crazy at night.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get the adrenal glands under control, then that seemingly specific heart issue goes away.
Mm-hmm.
But that won't show up in a test.
Well, yeah, and it's funny that you say that, Aaron. If you could just stop sharing for a second to make sure that no one else is coming in as we're talking.
Sure.
I want to talk to you a little bit about the adrenal glands, because so you're saying that okay, I know what I experienced physically, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that something was going on in my body. I was uncomfortable. I had the shakes. I knew that I needed to get myself some sugar or something because I felt like I was crashing.
Yep.
But you go to the doctor and you have blood work, and nothing shows up, which we've already said. But then we talk about, you just mentioned something that was really important. When the doctors do blood work, do they actually test anything regarding the adrenal glands?
Basic blood work, when you go, the answer is no. So the blood work is not going to be as complete as you might think. It would just test the basics. So you have to specifically ask for extra stuff, which
Mm-hmm.
might include thyroid hormone testing, adrenal cortisol testing. In Pennsylvania, luckily, you can do a saliva test for cortisol,
Mm-hmm.
which will let you know how your adrenal glands are doing. In New York, they don't let you do that.
Because that would be good, right?
It's a very good test and very accurate. So those are other things that you would have to ask for. Even something as basic as vitamin D3 is not normally done, which for women as well as men, but more so for women, should be tested, because if it's too low, you will exhibit mental aberrations. Again, like you could be very depressed because your D3 is too low.
Mm-hmm.
You fill up the D3 and the depression goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Or because D3 is very important for brain and hormone function.
Mm-hmm.
And the number you should be looking for is 50 on the test. They like to say 30 is good, but really you need 50. So those are extra things you need to generally ask for.
So again, going back to, okay, nothing shows up in the blood work,
Mm-hmm.
but then they give you some form of medicine that maybe will help something. And then now you have all of the different side effects that come into play, never really ever treating a problem in a sense.
Exactly. So they treat the symptom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem with both physical and mental stress, but more so with mental stress, because it's harder to identify and work with, is that the typical treatment is medication for mental stress. So here's a medication, here's some Zoloft, here's some Xanax, here's this, here's that. A lot of times it's to make the patient go away because they can't handle it. The blood work looks fine. They don't know what to do next. Unless you get a really good doctor, or that doctor knows who to refer you to, or you come across someone who does what I do, generally you'll be given a medication. That's a problem I see with clients when they come in, is they come in essentially given the medication and now having a hard time getting off the medication, which creates an enormous amount of mental stress.
Mm-hmm.
So the initial issue can be magnified by just taking medication without trying to address the initial cause.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that when on another example, when I was 35, I was having a heart catheterization. I know that at one point in my life, I was laying down to go to bed. I had so much mental stress in my body that when I went to lay down to go to sleep, it felt like there was 1,000 pounds of bricks laying on my chest. Now, you can't tell me that I didn't physically feel that that's what I experienced. And so the cardiologist did all this work, and then they finally said, all right, let's do a catheterization. And they do a catheterization, and the doctor says, okay, you have the good news and you have the bad news. The good news is there's nothing wrong with you. And then meanwhile, you're sitting there going, well, how could there be nothing wrong with me? Like, I know,
Right.
like, what are you trying to tell me? I know what I experienced. But the bad news is it's in your head.
I hate that.
Right. And so now you have to think for a moment, like, I'm a Jersey girl just outside the Manhattan area. I was a very sassy young woman. And I think, Erin, had I not been on any anesthesia, I probably would have gotten off the table and decked the doctor.
Yes.
But but you could totally understand, like, in the Western medicine, like you said, you go there and people are mentally stressed. The doctors give you a pill, but they don't deal with anything as far as, how it's affecting your body. And it's not that there's, and let's just say, and I agree with me, but I mean, if I'm right, but there's not anything mentally wrong with you.
No, it's it's mental in the sense that it's stress. It's there. It's real. Whether it's from whatever source, the brain is experiencing the stress. Which, as soon as the brain experiences the stress, it becomes physical, and hormones are released. For example, cortisol, which is from the adrenals, all sorts of stress hormones. Your digestive system, which is called your second brain, immediately feels the stress from your first brain. So it is mental in the sense that it's
Happening.
happening to you. It's not mental in the sense that you've made it up and it's in your brain, and you're just either doing it because you don't understand, or sometimes frequently patients get accused of wanting attention. And so it's ignored or not taken seriously. So in a case again like yours, when you hear that someone feels like they have a lot of pressure on their chest, almost always it goes back to the adrenal glands saying, okay, we don't have the oomph to handle anything. And so that pressure is almost like the adrenal glands checking out and the heart going, I can't handle this. So I'll have clients who say they wake up at night feeling like there's somebody sitting on them because it's very heavy, but then when they wake up, there's nobody there, but yet the feeling is still there. And it can be very heavy, like you said, like 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I had 1,000 bricks on my chest.
And as that happens, and you become more stressed because what's going on, and then they tell you nothing, but then that makes more stress because then where is this coming from?
Right, because I mean, I think, as a human and an individual, you want an answer, right? Because if we don't have answers, then it's like, oh my God, like, what's wrong with me? Well, there doesn't.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
And I was saying that's where the susceptibility to agreeing to the doctor to take the medication comes in, because now you've been convinced it's in your brain.
Yeah.
And it's nothing but your brain. So let's take the medication.
Yeah.
Where if the issue could be addressed, such as simple things like going for doing exercise, talking to a professional therapist, doing what you do, having an outlet with horses to let the body and the brain relax, doing simple things like going for a walk and changing your diet. Those seem very simple, and that's probably why most doctors don't really talk to their clients a lot about them, because there's nothing to give the client. There's no medication. There's dietary and lifestyle changes that need to be addressed, and many. Although again, there are some really good ones, and those, when you find them, those are gold. You want to stick with them. But most of them will get lost in that situation, and therefore nothing gets addressed.
At least not the way it should.
Not the way it should, and then you're getting back on the medication, and then you find yourself reliant on the medication instead of being able to take control of the situation yourself.
Right. And, so two questions are bubbling up inside of me. When we talked about my situation when I was younger, in my early 20s, one of the things that you and I on our journey together that I became consciously aware of is that because because the family that I grew up with struggled with diabetes, I
Hmm.
always assumed that the symptoms that I was having was diabetic, right? But through our journey together, one of the things that you happened to point out was that your adrenal glands that you don't often get tested for
Right.
causes the similar effects of, the shakes and things like that, that would often be a condition originally diagnosed as diabetic.
That's a good point, is that low blood sugar and poor performing adrenal glands, or hypoadrenals, uh, will mimic each other.
Mhm,
So you can get shaky, have big cravings for food, for sugar,
mhm.
have all the things that someone would say that's what a diabetic does, and then they do your blood work and your blood sugars could be and frequently is normal.
Mhm.
And so getting sugar does help the situation because it's a little bit of it's a stimulant and it gives a kick to the body.
Right.
And so that further confirms that, oh, it must be,
Yeah.
rather than, oh, it's the adrenals getting we're giving the adrenals a little crutch here
Yeah.
because 2 hours from now I'm going to need that sugar again.
Yeah.
So that's where, if all your blood sugar numbers are coming back normal, then that really indicates that endocrine system, adrenals, are really under stress, and that's why you feel like you have diabetic type symptoms.
I wonder how many doctors really go that extra mile to check the endocrine system.
There are a few. There's a Dr. Barbara Harvey and Sayer who really knows how to do what we're talking
Yeah.
about. There are, that's the only one that really comes to mind. There are some really good doctors in this area, um, who at least will entertain the thought of nutrition and other
Yeah.
activities to improve your health, but not many who will do all those tests like she will, which is why we get along so well. Is if I'm seeing someone from her or she's seeing someone from me, there's no conflict of how to handle the patient.
Right. That's beautiful. The other thought that bubbled up inside of me, and this is what I really like, that, so you have this condition that's going on, whether you're overweight, you suffer from, some adrenal issues, mental stress, whatever it may be. And so
Mhm.
when we're trying to transition into something, to stop something, right? And we say, okay, well, if yes, there is a sign that there's some hypoglycemic and your pancreas is kind of strained,
Mhm.
then the first thing we want to cut out of our diet is sugar, right? And so
Right.
as soon as you tell someone that they have to stop doing something, all of a sudden it's like, now they're, that it becomes a habitual habit to want more. And what makes what you do so powerful is that by getting the vitamins that you offer that supplements the particular organs,
Mhm.
it makes it really easy not to want the sugar.
Yeah, that's there's actually a lot of good points in there. The first is many people. Well, sugar is an addictive substance,
Mhm.
and that because grains break down into sugar, they are as addictive. So someone can be addicted to
Pasta.
breads and pasta and
Yeah.
pizza and think they're not eating sugar, but that's all sugar. As soon as you put bread in your mouth, it turns into sugar
Yeah.
instantaneously. So when you tell someone you can't have an addictive substance, like you said, immediately the body and the brain go into shock at the same time,
Yeah. It's like
and,
telling them to put their cell phone away, right?
and they get and can get very resistant,
Yeah.
and sometimes a little bit angry, frustrated because they're trying to fight through this truly addiction to the food or to the cell phone. Um,
Well, I
because
mean, is
both
it the food or is it how they feel?
It's actually both.
Yeah.
It's which makes it a little tricky or sometimes hard to figure out, is that the food itself, like sugar, hits your feel good serotonin receptors in the brain and also in the gut. Your gut has more serotonin receptors than the brain, so uh, That's why when people say I have a gut feeling, it's a real feeling. It's
Yeah.
something that you're feeling technically in your brain. But those things stimulate the feel good centers in the gut and the brain, those sugars and grains. So when you cut that out or reduce it, the person can go through withdrawal or searching for, or they feel like they can't get enough food because they're not getting their addiction in. And
Mhm.
so mentally it can really strain a person, and and then it's also the food causing it,
Mhm.
because that's what it does. It latches onto those centers. So you generally have to do two things. One is with the food, you have to. I recommend, and I rarely see anyone successfully go cold turkey. Almost always, those who do fall right back off the wagon
Mhm.
and get even. I call it, they're covered in cookie dough and cake because they just go crazy with the sugar
Mhm.
or the grains. So you have to slowly reduce the addictive substance, so that the brain gets used to less and less of it. But at the same time, like you mentioned, with the supplements, is you have to rebuild their sugar handling capabilities and nutritional bank account, which is going back to this little slide here with the green means a high nutritional bank account. And if as you replace and replenish that nutritional bank account with the right supplements and the right food, it becomes easier for the person to become less addictive to the substance that they were addicted to, because they have a much stronger blood sugar handling capability. So if you come at it from both ways, rebuilding the organs and tissues and sugar handling abilities and reducing the problem foods,
Mhm.
eventually come to a nice equilibrium where the person, which it's nice to hear, they come in and say, I'm really not thinking about having those candy bars, or I ate one yesterday and I just spit it out, because now it's not a willpower thing
Right.
anymore. It's
Right. Because yeah, I mean,
yeah,
personally, just from my own experience, the vitamins, the nutritional vitamins, which mind you are, dried processed, dried food,
mhm,
organic natural food that's either put into a compressed tablet or a capsule, you're getting that nutrition in your body. So you don't need the sugar that would have necessarily given you that jolt,
good,
or giving you that energy to keep going, because your body's getting what it needs. And it's not something to say like you have to stop doing this, but like you say, it's a gradual transition, not
right,
necessarily to a diet, but to a changed, a new, I look at it more of like a new upgrade lifestyle that you're living. And it's funny because I think Jen is listening in, but Jennifer's my sister down in Alabama. She's come up and worked with Erin. And just this morning or yesterday, she said to me, she had a brownie for the first time in ages. And she was like, it was terrible.
that's what I like to hear. Yeah, I'm glad I made just what I said.
So
Yeah, that's great.
it's definitely something that you have to transition over time. What people don't realize, especially like, God forbid, you have all of this mental strain, it puts a toll on your body over time. You're
Mhm.
looking at obesity, and then all of a sudden you want to go to the doctor and you want to get a pill and fix something that really it takes that transitional period of time for you to start readapting to a new lifestyle a little bit at a time, with the support, so you don't have that, those cravings. So like, kind of like when you quit smoking, right? You
Right.
get the vitamins that you need so that you're not craving that stuff. And then little by little, it's like your body is slowly rewarded. You feel better, you look better, you're getting sexier, things are great, everything's moving the way they need to move, and it feels really good. And it's like, gosh, why don't more people do this?
And yeah, that's a very good question. I always ask myself, why don't more people do this? I have a little slide I'll show, see
Yeah.
if it comes up. I'll go through some other those pictures a little bit if we have time, but let me see this slide here, which is Jack LaLanne.
I don't think you're
Can you see
sharing.
it?
Nope, not
What's
yet.
that?
We don't see it yet.
Um, Let me see. Maybe it moved out of screen. Hold on, it moved out for some reason.
There
There
we
we
go.
go. So there we go. There's Jack LaLanne. Can you see it?
Yep.
Yep. So that's a good question, because this is a still taken from a video or a TV show he did in the 50s. And here he is talking to people about not eating and staying away from white sugar candies, cakes, the same thing we're just talking about now. Here he is on national TV telling people not to eat this. And if you do, listen to him, you'll feel better, you'll look better, you'll have more energy, just like you said.
Yeah.
70 years later, we're having the exact same
History always
conversation.
repeats itself, right?
It repeats itself year after year, and everyone has their resolutions and they're going to eat healthier.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem, I think, really stems to a couple things. One is it's hard to break out of the cycle unless you know how to,
Mm-hmm.
just like anything that's addictive. Once you know how to, and what, like we talked about, gradually making the changes and learning why you're doing them and supporting your organs and glands with real food and the right supplements, you'll eventually not like those foods. Like Jen said, that brownie tasted horrible.
Mm-hmm.
The other is, I call it myth in marketing. There's so much advertisement for food-like products that people don't know any different. Even if they're told organic food is better, this is what they see. They see the McDonald's, they see the Oreo cookies. Those are the things that they are more familiar with. And the other thing is planning and preparation. Everyone is go, go, go. And so the myth is that there's no time for real food. I'm going to get this stuff, but it comes down to planning and prep. If you plan and prep properly, you can eat very well. You don't have to eat perfect, but you can eat 80% better than you currently are eating.
Mm-hmm.
So planning and prep with the go, go, go lifestyle really falls into this too. And that's why 70 years later, with those things I mentioned, those are the things that people we keep talking about.
Well, and I think that there's addictive behaviors as far as, how do we, you have addictive behaviors to, to food, to cell phones, to sugar, to habitual habits, to smoking, to like, people don't realize that addiction isn't just sex, drugs, and alcohol, right?
No.
There's addictive behaviors to food, whether good or bad, so, and anything in moderation is what's important. But what I like is that, working with you, Aaron, it gives those vitamins, give your body the nutrition that it needs, that it makes it easy to transition and to change the habits.
And that's the thing that sometimes is missed, is that I'll have clients who come in and they're eating actually quite well. Mm-hmm. They've made some really good changes to their diet. But when you look at what someone has been eating, the standard American diet for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, they're going to have a depleted nutritional bank account. So they're going to be more in the yellow here, which is an area of dysfunction. Mm-hmm. And frequently it's, which is unfortunate, because of eating in such a way for so long, they've created so much organ dysfunction that you have to go in with specific nutrition to feed that organ that's struggling the most. So when I work with clients, I like to find out which organ is doing the worst of the bunch. Mm-hmm. And I'll pick on the pancreas because that's one of the top three. And since we're talking about sugar, so when someone's pancreas is not doing very well and not testing very well with the nutrition response testing, one, I know what kind of diet we need to quickly go into. Mm-hmm. And two, we have to find out what is that pancreas not getting enough of that it needs in higher quantities that you can possibly ever eat.
Right. Exactly.
And in addition, it'll actually have pancreatic cellular material to actually get at the very basic level of the cell, like this guy here, and help repair the pancreas from the cell level up. Mm-hmm. While you're also eating good nutrition to feed the cells. So as time goes on, the newer cells should be stronger and healthier than the older cells. Mm-hmm. And then what most people don't realize is that you'll get symptomatic changes way in advance of real tissue change. Mm-hmm. So you could feel much better, cravings are gone, food tastes, sugar doesn't taste as good, you don't have any more shaking, let's say your blood sugar numbers were off and now they're really good.
Yeah.
You might still need 2 to 5 years or more of doing what you're doing before the pancreas is really healed.
Mhm.
And that's what, and when it's really healed, that's when you're back to good, strong, I call it ability to withstand the sugar cravings because the pancreas is handling blood sugar a lot better.
Right. And that goes into, talking about how, you actually care for your patients and how you work with them. I'm not sure if treatment is the right word that you use, but your plan of how to help bring their organs back up to function. The goal being that you get off of those nutritional vitamins, where in the Western culture, I remember, before my mom passed away and even before my dad passed away, I mean, my mom was up to like 28 kinds of pills a
Mm,
day, and all of those pills having side effects.
yeah.
How did one counterbalance the other? So I feel like all of that medicine, even though it was keeping her alive, it was doing her even more disjustice than, it was a horrible thing. So here in this sense, you may have a 30-year-old woman that has, is addicted to the carbs that's creating an abundance of sugar and strain on her pancreas. But in 30 years of eating poorly, now in just a couple of years, maybe they could be off the vitamins and being back to eating what they want. But eating what they want, it's like they don't even go to the carbs anymore, because when they put it in their body, it just immediately makes their body feel like crap.
And that's important is the longer you stay away from processed foods and sugars, the more you feel the effects when you eat them.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, people do, I'll do a week detox or 2 weeks detox. It's not long enough. You need to stay away from those foods for 30, 60, 90 days, a year, 2 years. And then when you do have it, you'll get the headache, you'll start falling asleep in the afternoon. You might immediately have digestive distress
Mm-hmm.
or old aches and pains. For example, I had a client come in today who was doing really well, but fell off the wagon over the holidays,
Sure.
and all a number of her old aches and pains were starting to come back.
Yeah.
And that's when the light bulb really went on for her, is that I was eating so well, I didn't realize how miserable I was before. And now that I'm starting to eat some of those foods again, I'm realizing how miserable I was, and I don't want to go back there again.
Yeah.
So I'm back to eating how I should. And what's nice is didn't tell her that she should eat better. She came in and said, I am going to eat better because
Yeah.
I know why. I know why my elbow hurts. I know why my stomach hurts. I know why my knee hurts.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm getting older. It's my food.
Yeah.
And so she'll fix it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. One of the things I said, earlier on, but I think one of the biggest challenges, even in the work that I do, working with sales professionals across the world, they are under such mental strain because of their self-awareness of, their systems or their methods, or not having meaning or purpose to what it is that they're doing. And I think it boils down to here as well, is like they're not consciously aware of how to take care of their body. As
Yeah.
silly as that sounds, right? It's the same thing for me. Like everything that we've ever taught about in sales is a lie as far as I'm concerned. There's a much easier way that's heart-centered, that doesn't cause you stress, that doesn't have to force or manipulate a sale, right?
Mhm.
Because even in the sales industry, if you're forcing or manipulating a sale, the mental capacity, the mental strain that you're putting on your brain is having an impact on your body, whether you believe it or not.
Yeah, that's true. The more mental anguish you cause yourself, which we do to ourselves a lot, the
Yeah.
more physical health issues you'll exhibit. And that's why eating well, but also, doing, like I mentioned earlier, the non-stressful things to reduce stress, whether it's doing an activity that you like, whether it's, like you said, when you do a job, you're doing it the way that you know it should be ethically done. Doing yoga, things that will keep stress away from you. Making sure that the people around you are healthy people to be around.
Yeah.
Those are the things that will take so much weight off your brain and then off the rest of your body, that those things in themselves could elevate a person's health. And sometimes those things will prevent a person from feeling better, even though they're eating really well.
Mhm.
So I like to have those two happening at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean that's like I mean you and I could probably go on and talk all night, but when I came to you, I thought I ate pretty well, and then I realized I wasn't really eating as well as I thought I was.
And
So
yeah, that's a lot of people will, and they're doing much better, but there's more that can be done.
yeah, exactly. So Erin, why don't you share a little bit about what you have going on as far as what you do?
Okay, let me see here. I'll get a little slide here. So what I do is I'll keep this one up.
Okay.
Now I'll show a few pictures in a second, and they're of healthy organs and of unhealthy organs. So if you're a little squeamish, close one eye and look with the other eye. But I want to show also what people don't see, what's happening inside their bodies. So what I do essentially is, and I'm going to go to the mission statement first. But our mission statement is to improve the quality of life for as many people as possible through better nutrition and education. So doing talks like this is part of our mission statement, but also getting people into our office, or if they can't see us, into somebody's office who knows what they're doing, so that they can start working on this triangle, meaning decreasing their nutritional deficiencies, increasing their organ function, and then improving their health. And that's the three things that need to happen. And so when clients come to see me, one of the things I do among others is I do what's called nutritional response testing. And nutritional response testing lets us get into this gray area, which is this yellow line here. Because this is the area where most people are at, where blood work doesn't show anything, where symptoms are beginning to manifest themselves and are getting worse. You might not specifically have a disease yet, but you're not feeling good. And that's where a lot of people are told, well, you're getting older, you need to expect that you're going to have joint pain, your brain's not going to function. In which I tell never, ever let someone tell you you have a symptom and it's because you're getting older. You can have excellent health your whole life. You might not have as, in your 80s, you might not be as spry as your 20s, but you can still be really healthy. So with nutrition response testing, we can, it allows me to identify which organ or group of organs are struggling nutritionally. And that's the key thing, struggling nutritionally. So we're not looking for a specific disease. We're not looking to treat an illness. We're looking for which organs and glands do not have the nutrition they need to function properly, and which ones of those are doing the worst. So that way, if someone comes into me with digestive issues, you could think, well, it's got to be the stomach, but maybe it's the liver, maybe it's the gallbladder. Maybe it has to do with other issues in the digestive system, like a bacteria or a virus or something like that. Now, I can also work with people who have a diagnosed disease like diabetes or diabetes, type 1, type 2. They have an autoimmune issue, anything that's been diagnosed. But you can see down here, the disease state is the red, and that takes a long haul, usually, to get to where you want to be or to see improvement. So my goal is to prevent as many people from falling into that category. And if they do, and they're coming to see me, make sure, can we get them out of that category? But what we do in either case is we address nutritionally the weakest organs. So if it's the liver, we want a diet that's going to address the liver and also the right supplements that are going to allow us to handle the liver. The liver might need a big detox, or that could be the exact wrong thing to do, and the liver needs some anti-inflammatory nutrition so that it'll just calm down.
Yeah. And just in that, you begin to feel better, then there's hope, right? Because a lot of people don't have that. They go to the Western doctor, they take medicine, and it's just something they're going to be on for life. And it's like, no, that doesn't have to be the case. Yeah, not at all.
You're right, and that's there was a client. He just emailed me. He was like you said. He when he came in to see me, he didn't have much hope. He'd been working with doctors for 10 years for a very severe upper respiratory issues, and it was preventing his. Well, it was ruining his quality of life because he couldn't really do anything, and he hated the winter because he was horribly sick. And I started seeing him back in, I think, the beginning of the year or middle, like the first quarter or so. And he sent me an email saying that that he has had no pneumonia, no bronchitis. He was able to go hunting for the first time in years.
Nice.
And he wrote a little note saying, "I can't believe I spent all this time looking, with the wrong people. No one talked to him about his diet."
Yeah.
In a way that was meaningful to him.
I was just going to say, talk about diet. There was a video that I saw the other day that, diet pills are like an $80 billion revenue of things that don't work because it's not about the pills.
It's not. I mean, they can trick you in the body into doing things that it shouldn't be doing. That's why they can be so dangerous.
Yeah.
And you think, okay, well, these pills got me 15 or 30 pounds, but what are they doing to the liver, the heart? Nobody really knows.
Yeah.
And also, how long will they work? And once you start working, what's the next thing you're going to do?
Well, yeah. And then what's the habit you're not changing the habit, right? And that's
Right.
really the key.
You didn't change the habit, and the body finds a way to work around the things that are working if you don't change your habit. So the pill that you were taking that worked might stop working, will most likely start working because you never, like you said, you never changed your habit.
Yeah.
So now you're back to square one.
Yeah. So let me make sure I understand. I mean, I know that I understand, but I want to put it in some layman terms so that people that are going to either listening to us now or, going to watch this later on, that when Aaron talks about coming in and doing the tests that he's doing, it's interesting. The way that I visualize it, Aaron, is that there's two bodies, right? There's the external part of our body that we can physically touch and feel. And then there's an internal part of our body that we can't really touch or feel, but we know it exists.
Yes.
And when I came in and did my first evaluation, it was interesting because at the time I was 51 years old. And so you do this non-invasive, really simple test. And then Aaron comes out and, he's just so humbling about how he shares that, okay, so maybe you're 51 years old, but the internal part of your body is registering 75. And you're like, what?
Wow, that shocks a lot of people.
Yeah. So, when you go to the doctor, that's, the traditional doctor, that's not how it's seen at all. And so it's very eye-opening, which is the key, right? The awareness to, oh, wow. So if I'm only 51 years old, feel like I'm pretty physically healthy, eat pretty well, I don't take any medicine, but I don't quite feel 100%, and the internal part of my body is saying I'm 75. Well, no wonder why I've got fatigue, and no wonder why my joints are starting to hurt me, and no wonder why, so this is, a perfect example of letting people consciously become aware of is that there's so many different ways that you can tackle, and open your eyes to what is available to you. That's non-invasive, that actually has immediate and long-lasting changes. The same way that we do work in the arena with horses, creating an experience for people to become consciously aware, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wow, well, I could do that, right? And this is the same thing.
That's actually, you explained it quite well. So the connection you made between like the body that you feel, that you can see on the outside, and then what's going on the inside is important because there are they're called dermatomes. There are nerve tissue that is connected to the organs that go below the surface of the skin. So if you push over the liver, that dermatome, those nerves will register that push on those nerves that are above the liver.
Mhm.
and you can connect with the liver that way. That's how one reason acupuncture works so well is it taps into the connection between the skin tissue, the nerves below the skin, and the actual organ below those nerves.
Mhm.
And so you can essentially, do a little test with the liver and say, okay, how are you doing? Okay, you're doing well. Okay, how's the stomach tissue doing?
Right.
And okay, you're doing well. Because what happens is, like you mentioned, 75 on the inside, 51 chronologically, is that you don't see what's happening on the inside. So you don't, a lot of times people don't truly make the connection that the symptoms they're experiencing are their organs and glands way of trying to get your attention to say, pay attention, something is not right inside the body. But frequently we'll just, we'll either ignore it or plow through it. Or a frequent thing I hear is, I've learned to deal with this. I
Mm.
can, it's something that's a part of my life. I'm not, I'm just going to handle it. Uh, and so as that happens, though, the organs and glands, if they don't have, if attention is not paid to them, they will continue to get worse as time goes on.
Mhm.
And so you go from healthy to disease. And so I'll show you a couple of little pictures. So this one is of a kidney.
Mhm.
So you can see the healthy kidney at the top and then the diseased kidneys at the bottom. Of course, there's a large gradient between the healthy kidney and the diseased kidney. So someone who's not quite feeling really well and maybe has chronic UTIs, urinary tract infections, is maybe diabetic, may not have a diseased kidney like the one you see here, but may have something that's in between a healthy kidney and a fully diseased kidney.
Mhm.
So how well that kidney is not going to be able to function as well as the healthy kidney,
Mhm.
the partially diseased kidney. So you're going to have organ dysfunction, and you're going to have symptoms related to a dysfunctional kidney. The same thing goes. I'll show you. Here's a thyroid.
Well, go back to that for a second, because
Sure.
just as a perfect example is that you may have UTIs, but it's not necessarily the kidney that's getting treated.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you could go to the doctor and he gives you something to clear up the bacteria of what's going on in your bladder,
Mhm.
but the reality of it is it could be stemming from your kidney.
And it could be damaging your kidney if you
Right.
have
Yeah.
chronic. There's so much inflammation. So you're right. So they keep saying, here's the antibiotic for this infection,
Yeah.
but you don't realize that you're. So what's interesting here is that, the diseased kidney, if it gets too diseased, no amount of nutrition is going to do
Mhm.
anything. If it's mildly unhealthy, you can recover fairly quickly.
Mhm.
If it's quite unhealthy, it's going to take a long time to rebuild this tissue.
Mhm.
And that's what I was talking about earlier, is you can have symptomatic relief long before the tissue is rebuilt.
Yep.
But if it's completely diseased and way down the path, you may be at the point of no return. And that's what I want people to realize is, you want to handle your health as soon as you
Mhm.
have health issues, or you need to do something, because the longer you wait, the more likely it is for things to go in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And I once someone's on kidney dialysis, I'm kind of out of the picture
Yeah.
because their kidney has gone that far.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's not, I mean, I believe in my heart of hearts, even if someone is on dialysis, I mean, there are things that you can do to help
mhm,
nutritionally, but whether or not, I mean, it will have an impact health wise at a very
yes.
slow pace, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be that you wouldn't be able to untreat it. It's just that it's so significantly damaged. It's
The improvement will be lot less than what you
right,
would want. So
right.
yes, so someone came to me and they really were willing to work very, very hard on their diet, and they were on kidney dialysis,
Yeah.
and they were really 100% committed. I would
Miracle.
let them know that, I don't know how much healthier where we can go with your kidney, but this is a very good opportunity to see if we can decrease your trips to dialysis, Maybe we can get you from stage 4 to stage 3 through nutritional support. But I would tell them to be, so that they know is I'm not promising we're going to get you back to that healthy kidney,
Mhm.
because the kidney, it may be in certain tissue areas, like you can see the black on this kidney, where it's actually necrotic dead tissue. We're going to have that as a handicap.
Let me ask you, which one is worse, the red or the brown one?
Well, this one at top, the healthy kidney is the best. The kidneys at the bottom, I would say neither one is better than the other.
Oh.
One is just full of cysts and is enlarged and in horrible shape. And the other one, maybe you could say this one is worse because the tissue is dead in many areas.
The brown one.
The brown, yeah, where you see the black.
It looks like it's completely dried up almost.
I describe it as, a pumpkin that has been out for way too long.
Yeah.
The tissue is dead. And so depending on how far along someone is and through their dialysis, there are things that can be done, but you have to also recognize the limitations. But if they're really willing to just bust their butt, I always tell clients, it's amazing what the body can do.
Yeah.
So why don't we work our tails off and see how much we can rehabilitate that kidney? And while we're doing,
life is definitely worth the fight.
And while we're doing that, the other organs are going to benefit. And so if the liver's doing better, maybe that can help out the kidneys. And given enough time, maybe we can get you off the kidney dialysis or greatly reduce it, which means now your life expectancy has vastly increased.
You're beautiful.
So that's a good point.
Aaron, tell me, do you have, a lot of people, when we talk about kinesiology, and that's the method that you use as far as testing, is there anything to show people like what you do as far as kinesiology? Because I know what you do, but I don't think people have a clear image of how non-invasive it is.
That's it. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot to talk about that. That is, there's a short little video on my website.
Okay, maybe you can share it with me, and we can put it in this event, and this way other people can look at it. We'll also put a link to your page.
Okay.
But when you talk about kinesiology and muscle testing, it's not like you're poking them with needles. It's not like you're doing these blood pressure kind of checks or heart rates or anything like that. But reality, I always talk about, I don't know if people understand even what like a pendulum is, right? You and I have had this conversation of, have you ever just held something and used your body as a pendulum to say, yes, it's good for you, or no, it's not? The internal part of your body will talk to you if you're willing to hear what it has to say. And so with Aaron's testing, you use different types of metals, and maybe you can explain a little bit about that, and then we can go into some questioning.
Okay, so essentially with the nutrition response testing, and you'll get a better picture when you watch the video, is we're putting pressure over the organs and glands, and anything can be tested. We can, joints, and when I say tested, that means I'm putting a slight amount of pressure all over the area. And what that does is it connects to the nervous tissue below the area I'm putting the pressure on. And so, for example, here's a picture of a healthy liver in the blue, and at the top you see a fatty liver. And that's becoming more and more prevalent as a fatty liver because of, not due to eating too much sugar, not to eating too much fat, but too much sugar. So if I put pressure over this healthy liver on the that's in the blue frame, the body is not going to really care that I did that because the liver's healthy and happy. If I put pressure over the liver and it's inflamed or it's unhealthy like the fatty liver, the body is not going to like that. It's irritating to do that. And so when I put pressure over that area, the body's going to let me know that that area is struggling. And the way I do it is I call it the indicator arm, and I'm pressing on, I press on their arm while I'm pressing on the organ. And if the healthy liver, like I put pressure on the healthy liver, the arm will stay up. If I put pressure on the unhealthy liver, the body is not going to like it because it's already irritated anyway. So more pressure just irritates it more. And the arm will go down because the body takes a little bit of energy and says, I got to handle this area that's being poked, or I shouldn't say poked, is being annoyed slightly because of the slight pressure
Right.
over the liver. And therefore I know, okay, the liver is one area we got to pay nutritionally pay attention to, because it's not doing well. And I may not know at all that it's essentially a fatty liver. I'll just know symptomatically and testing wise that, hey, we got to do something here.
Yeah.
Now, they could go to the doctor and they come back and it says, yes, it's definitely a fatty liver, but that's not going to affect the testing. It's not going to affect what I found. But I do like to have those done occasionally so I can know exactly what is the liver demonstrating. And then I send it to the doctor, they get the ultrasound, they come back and they say, yep, fatty liver, okay. and there we go.
Well, and it's so cool. What I think is so cool is that, it's kind of like the human can't lie, right?
No.
When they come in, when they come in and, do you eat a lot of sugar? No, I don't eat a lot of sugar. And then you put your hand over the pancreas and the arm, no matter what you do, it can't stand up. It's like, boom. And it's like, all right, well, maybe you don't think you eat a lot of sugar, but.
And this is a picture of a healthy pancreas that's by itself on the left.
Ugh, disgusting.
And these are pictures of diseased pancreas, and these are from a diabetic, and also I think it's cancer down at the bottom. The top one is a diabetic. Now you can see how the organs change their shape, the color, the texture. Everything happens to the tissue, and they become like that pumpkin that's been left outside for too long. And you can imagine how hard it is for someone's pancreas who's going in this direction for them to handle their blood sugar properly and to digest their foods properly. And usually they're going to go through a lot of pain in terms of pancreatitis too, which usually will get misconstrued as upper abdominal pain or a pulled muscle or something like that, until enough tests are finally done that they say, yes, your pancreas is inflamed.
Yeah. Well, and so looking at this image, it comes to mind for me that when we go to the traditional doctor and get medicine, the image doesn't change.
What's that?
So traditionally, if someone goes to the doctor and they're put on medicine because they're diabetic, right, their pancreas doesn't necessarily change. It would alleviate a symptom, but it still leads the particular organ on a trajectory of getting worse.
Right. So it still leaves the organ open to continued damage and dysfunction. And you are getting a symptomatic change, which kind of masks the fact that the damage has not been addressed.
Right.
So if you take a look and say, okay, I have a pancreas, let's say it's not as bad as these guys, but it's not, you have a lot of symptoms, and so we know it's not as good as a really healthy pancreas. If you really put your foot down and say, okay, I'm going to change my diet, not just for the short term, but for the long term. So as you mentioned, I'm going to make a new way of life in terms of purchasing food, preparing foods, and looking at foods. And I'm also going to get some help to get pancreas-specific food, which in my case would be the standard processed supplements.
Right.
We can get that pancreas closer to the really healthy-looking one.
Right.
It might not become 100% perfect, but what if it was already 50% in the wrong direction, and we changed it, and now it's only 10% in the wrong direction? You're going to be feeling really good. And that's what's called true tissue healing.
So this could be, the top one could be the 75-year-old, and now I'm back down to 50. Like I joke with Aaron, I'm like, yes, I'm almost my age. I think I was 55 the last time I did the test.
Yeah. So you can internally improve the texture, the health, the color, the functionality of organs and glands so that they can go back to their normal look. You can take a damaged heart like this that's all yellow, and that's all, the yellow is from fat from too much sugar and carbohydrates. You can take a fatty looking heart like that and you can get it much closer to the healthier heart. And of course, who's going to have more energy? Who's going to feel younger? Who's going to be able to go up the steps better?
So I think maybe a goal for me and you and continuing to work together, see if I can get the internal, that second part of my being, right, if we can't get it to like 35.
Yeah, you just never know.
Yeah.
And I always tell clients, even if, let's say, just use 50 as a number. Let's say you came in at 75 and we got it, this is a certain test called a health graph that we can see how the body essentially is functioning at the cellular level. Is it close to your age, or is it showing that, hey, your organs and glands are not quite doing as well as you'd like them to do? And so they're beginning to look like this or this. Even if, let's say, we don't get it to 35, but let's say as time goes on, it stays at 55, and the health graph that we're doing stays at 55, but as the years go by, you're 60, 65, 75, but the cellular vitality that we're talking about continues to stay at that 55-year-old.
Oh yeah, you're going to live a lot longer.
And you're going to feel young. And this is the saying I love telling clients is you're going to be younger as you get older.
Yeah.
You'll age chronologically, but your organs and glands are going to be more like the healthy ones you see here. And
as long as the external part of the body doesn't shrivel.
Exactly. And the better the internal glands function, the better the external person looks. The better the hair, the better the eyes, the better the skin, and the better the brain function. The person with a heart like this, the yellow one that's damaged, is probably going to have a lack of blood flow and oxygen to the brain. So they're going to feel brain foggy. They're going to be susceptible to stress. They're not going to function at a higher level, as high level as they could mentally. So on the flip side, the stress is going to impact them more, which is going to make their physical issues worse, which is going to make the mental issues worse. And now you've got this horrible downward spiral.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, so physical stress can cause more mental stress, and mental stress can cause more physical stress.
And that's why Aaron and I kind of go so well together. I look at, I work on the mental side of how people think, condition, their thinking, and Aaron works on the physical part of the body and the internal organs, and it just makes a really nice fit. All right, let's see if we can transition back because I can't see anyone on the other side.
Okay.
All right, so we've lost a bunch of people. Let me see if I can look on Facebook and see if we've got people watching on Facebook. We've got very few doctors test adrenals. I've been fighting with doctors since having cancer 16 years ago. Oh, interesting. Yeah. We do have, let's see, Aaron is, no, not Aaron. How do I get back to my other screen? There we go. Linda, you're on the line with us. I know, Linda, that you sometimes have issues when it comes to the audio. You and I have talked before. I'm hoping that we can unmute you. Do you have any questions?
Oh, it looks muted.
Yeah, you got to unmute yourself, Linda. Nope, can't hear you. Dang it.
It might take a second.
No, Linda's been having some problems with her audio. Linda, can you type in the chat box for me? Aaron, this is while Linda's typing in the chat box. I mean, I think you and I could go on for hours and talk about this stuff. I think it's absolutely fascinating. I think people need to be more consciously aware of there are choices when it comes to how to condition your mind for thinking. There are choices of how to treat the body that's very organic and natural, and it doesn't have to be medicated. There are things that people can do, and the biggest thing is awareness, right? Helping people to become more aware of what it is that they can do to improve themselves. Have to come to PA to have you help me. Well, Aaron is in New York, but you don't have to come here to get help. Aaron, we're going to post a link of how you can get connected with Aaron. Linda, you've taken trips up here before, so there's nothing to say you couldn't come back up and visit with Aaron and then work out some kind of treatment plan for yourself. But yeah, so any specific questions about something going on with you medically that maybe you'd like to ask Aaron? No, okay, good.
That one question, was that a question the person who was asking about had being diagnosed with cancer and fighting with doctors? Was that?
She didn't really post a question. It was more of like a statement saying that very few doctors test adrenals, and I've been fighting with doctors since having cancer 16 years ago. Now I know this particular lady pretty well. She's actually in Colorado.
Mhm.
Again, we could put a link to your site so that they can get some information, and hopefully, I'll have a conversation with her over the next couple days to see if there is
Okay.
something that you guys can do to connect with each other.
One thing, which would be that's a good question or statement she made, just for her and anybody else that is listening in terms of having, I call it a dramatic health or mental experience. So whether it's cancer, a car accident, a divorce, a major health crisis of any kind or mental crisis of any kind, those can still have impacts 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the line. So sometimes people won't put the connection to the fact that once I had this chronic or this major experience, whether it was an accident or surgery or cancer or whatever, that they never quite recovered from that experience, and that they're actually at a lower level of health since that experience, even if it's not as bad as it was during that experience, or they could be gradually getting worse as time goes on and getting closer to how they felt many years ago because their body's losing the ability to maintain itself.
Mhm.
So anyone who's had a major health or mental or any kind of crisis, and that includes childbirth. Childbirth is a traumatic experience for the body, and a common thing I hear from women is that everything was fine until I had
Kids.
kids, and it could be the first child or the fifth child, but they can pinpoint to these symptoms, these issues happen after that birth.
Yeah.
Or I felt great until I had this surgery, and while the surgery took care of this issue, these issues showed up or never, or these new issues popped up, or other issues became worse. And so someone who had cancer and went through all that treatment can still have adrenal glands that never recuperated from that experience. And until they get some TLC,
Yeah.
there's going to be some issues. And if one doctor won't do the test, get another doctor who
Yeah.
will.
Well, but I think that people don't like, so for instance, when we were talking about the adrenal glands earlier, I mean, in my early 20s, I didn't know to ask a question like, well, is there anything else that could, I don't think people have even a simple education around, what questions you should be asking your doctor. And because of that, you're just trusting that whatever they're going to do is they've done everything that they can, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, so, that may be a good thing for you, is to put together some type of, a guide that says, if you're not getting answers or you're not feeling better, then, here's 5 simple questions that you should be asking your doctor. And if you're not getting the help, then come and see Aaron.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Questions to
like, it's almost like a myth busting, like if your doctor tells you this, ask this. If this is what's happening, ask this.
Yep, so you can be more of what's the word I'm looking for? More proactive or for yourself in
Yeah.
the appointment.
Yeah.
And don't just. And I always one thing that usually, I should say almost always holds true, is that if you have a gut feeling that you didn't get the information or something wasn't addressed, you're most likely right.
Yeah.
So go see somebody. Go
to somebody else.
Yeah, or do a little bit more research or whatever it is, but don't take that answer, because if you leave the office with all these questions in your mind and you have a medication in your hand, you might want to get those questions asked before you take the medication.
I feel like that's the internal part of, call it God, call it spirit, call it intuition, call it gut instincts, whatever it may be. But I feel like that's just the internal part of, God trying to let you know that this isn't the avenue that you're supposed to be taking.
Mhm.
You need to go through some self-discovery before you actually come to what you're going to do. You
Yeah.
said, you pointed out before, and I'm wondering if this is something that even medically can be tested, but you said that when bodies are traumatized,
Mhm.
there's organs that have been affected for years, it could be 30 years later, and
Yeah.
people still have those similar symptoms. I want to think that what you're pertaining to is that in the organs, they suffer a cellular memory.
Yes, essentially, that's a perfect way to explain it. The way I tell clients is that, let's say we do the testing and they had a major health issue, or again, like a car accident is a common one. I tell them the heart, the tissue is still stuck at the moment of the accident and the trauma that surrounded it. And until you rehabilitate that heart tissue and maybe some other organs and glands that are struggling, that memory of the heart is going to be stuck 20
Right.
years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's the cellular memory, as each cell imparts and gives birth to a new cell, the struggles it has can translate to the new cell.
Yeah.
And you have to break that cycle. And you can break it both through mental approaches and nutritional approaches, so
Mhm.
that you can get out of whatever caused that initial health issue.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. People don't, I mean, I don't even think doctors test for any type of like, can you test for, I mean, you could test for cellular memory in a sense, but
In a sense, yeah. Well, again, if you have a really good doctor who really listens and isn't stuck on medication,
yeah,
if he can't address it, he will tell you or she will tell you, um, I think it's this. We need to dig deeper. We need to do more, and that's a good doctor. If you come across someone who says, nothing's showing up, nothing, and stops there, you do need to talk to another doctor or talk to somebody else or do more research,
yeah,
because that's a clear sign that that person is not willing or able to go further. But if you do have a doctor that says, hey, let's look at this deeper, let's go over here, let's do this test, let's examine your nutrition. When did this symptom happen? Did it happen after the accident or before the accident?
right. Or was there something traumatic in your life
Yeah,
at some point that happened? Like,
it
yeah,
happened.
just getting you,
Yeah,
to me, that's building relationships instead of just being transactional. So,
yeah.
um,
And then the doctor's really listening to if he asks or she asks those questions.
right. And so
Yeah.
never be satisfied with just one thing, but go out and, get the answers that you really need to, to find in order for you to take care of yourself. I mean, what better, I mean, so often we live in an exterior world, right? Where, we're attached to things and obstacles and products and, that external world, when people really need to take a good look at the internal world of what's going on with them mentally, as well
Yeah.
as what's going on with them physically. So
So
Aaron,
yeah.
it's been an absolute, you and I, we probably could talk for hours. I love, this is fascinating to me. So I'm hoping that, as, coming into the group, we've got people from all around the world that, are in sales position. They're either just starting out or they're making high level income and they're under all different kinds of stress. And,
Yeah.
I see it all the time. I'm associated with several organizations where people are making millions of dollars a year, some even billions of dollars a year. And they are, regardless of the amount of money that they're making, they are under significant stress. And if we could just let the world know that there are options out there, and this was what this was all about, is that not only do you help the mental stress by working with us here at Yarcourt, but you can also, create a better healthy being. And there's other alternatives, and one of them being working with Aaron that does, I say kinesiology, you call it muscle.
Kinesiology is a good. It covers a lot of sections. So what I do is called nutrition response testing, which is kinesiology, but it's you can have kinesiology that takes hours to get through a certain process, but with nutrition response testing, it's been developed so that you can quickly get to what you need to get to without spending 30 minutes checking everything to the point where the client starts to check out during the
Yeah.
appointment.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so to get a hold, I mean, if you're having some mental issues, you want to recondition how you're thinking, you want to be able to build more confidence and clarity in what it is that you're doing as far as in the sales industry, then by all means, just private message me. We'll be happy to arrange a call. If you want to get a hold of Aaron, can you share with us here on the video website?
Oh,
And we'll share it below, but if you can just, what's the website? Is there a phone number?
sure. Yeah, let me do this. Real quickly, I just put this here, this little graph,
Yeah.
because this is for those in high-powered, high-stress jobs, lots of demands, the vice presidents, the presidents, the big sales folks, but it can be anybody. So many of them are in stage 3 or going in that direction faster than they realize. And that's the exhaustion stage where they burn out, they can't do their job,
Yeah.
they're mentally done, they have panic attacks. And that's where the mental component has completely broken down the physical component.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that is due to, as you mentioned earlier, not paying attention to where your health is going and not taking care of yourself both mentally and nutritionally. So anyone
On the mental side of on the mental side of things, when we're working with people, we always notice that one of the biggest challenges is that there's a difference between living life and then living a meaning and purposeful life. And so people lack direction. So once we give them, once we have a conversation and we realize what's the meaning behind why it is they're working and doing what they're doing, it's not just because they're in a sales position because they want to be able to earn more money or to have the freedom to be able to have all the time in the world to do what they want, but there has to be something more to that, right? And maybe it's having security in the future because we can't rely on the government, or maybe it's just having enough money in the bank so you don't have to worry about bills, but you can live a lifestyle that you want to live, right, and not be at the mercy of a paycheck. And so there's so much more meaning behind it. And once we realize that, well, now we can start to reverse engineer a plan of how you can actually get there. And it just immediately alleviates the stress, because now we're going to start conditioning your mind to think of what specific strategical steps do you take to be able to get to this point, Aaron. And it's really interesting because even today we had our Mastering Sales from the Inside Out program, and one of the gals on there was saying that since she started the program 3 weeks ago, she's figured out a specific niche that's given her meaning and purpose, and the abundance of referrals have been coming through the door. She doesn't know how to handle the amount of referrals that are coming in. And so we sat down and we looked at it and we said, okay, so let's look at the amount of money that you want to be able to bring in on a monthly basis. And she said, I want to bring in 20,000 a month, right? Take home. I said, okay. So what if we could, with all of those clients that are coming in, what if we can pick out 6 of them that would give you that abundance over the next 6 months? And she was like, that's it? That's it, right? Most people think they need quantity versus quality. And so as soon as we give them quality, they realize they can make the money. And now we start to condition their thinking in a whole new way. The stress level goes from we say on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your stress? Some people come in and say, Gina, I don't know, it's like 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. And so now we've taken that 10,000 and we've brought it down to like maybe a 5 or a 6. Now, how does that start to impact your health? Right? It takes all of the pressure off of the organs, but now that doesn't mean that there isn't other work that you have to do, right? And that's where Aaron comes in the picture.
Yeah, but what it does is it takes off a huge component that will allow their health to improve, because that amount of stress could suppress lots of good things they try to do for themselves.
Yeah. And that's where that graph that you were showing before. I mean, a lot of times we get people that are coming in and they're almost at that point where they're saying, I'm stuck, I'm burnt out, I'm like literally dragging myself out of bed. I'm in the motion because I have to work. And I mean, it's really sad to see that people usually wait until they get to that point, to do something about it. So again, don't wait to get to that point. There are easier ways that you can have more abundance in your life, reach higher levels of income and be healthy along the way.
Absolutely.
So Erin, you've shared your screen with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've already put off 2 calls that I have this evening. Missy's been on the backside going, oh my God, we gotta move this around. So
Okay.
again, it's been an absolute pleasure working with you. Let's bring you back in maybe in the month of February. We'll pick a topic to talk about.
Yeah.
And here's a phone number that you can reach Erin. When you do call, please let them know that the genius Gina has sent you, right? There's a website there, the WHN Center, that you can get some information about what Erin's doing. You can also see the video that he was mentioning about what is nutritional response testing. And yeah, thanks again for coming. I loved it.
Yes. Thank you, Gina. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I look forward to doing another talk in the future when, and we'll pick a specific, probably maybe on the immune system or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. All right.
Thanks, Gina.
I just needed to stop. Hold on a second.